For those who are viewers of this channel, I'm sure it's no surprise that I'm a fan of hip-hop. However, I see a ton of parallels between hip-hop and the gaming industry. Both have roots in the 1970s and find true mainstream success in the mid to late 80s, both reaching new heights in the 90s through the early 2000s. However, in the 2010s, with both seeming bigger than ever, both seem to be in a weird state of decline that has continued into the 2020s. And only old school fans seem to notice. Everyone else tells you that you're crazy, or they say how great things are still being made and you just need to know where to look. Or the worst thing, maybe you've aged out and it's time for you to move on. But deep down on the inside, you truly love it and you only want to see it go on for future generations and help it return to its once greatness of the 90s and early 2000s. So for a bit of context, my love for games is similar to my love for hip-hop, meaning I'm much more of a fan of the weird, quirky, and eclectic rather than things that shoot for mass appeal. I love artists that truly do something unique. The music isn't always danceable, the albums aren't always digestible on their first listen, and in some cases even their 10th. But that's the point of these albums. They aren't made for mainstream audiences. They're meant to be complex and a little obtuse, to engage the listener in ways that you don't get by listening to top 100 singles, to get you to think outside of the box, challenge you in a way, and turn you from a passive listener to an active listener. Sure, I love a ton of fun records, but even those songs usually do something a little bit different. And if they do everything that the top 100 does, they do it very well. So if you can't tell from what I described, I'm a fan of underground hip-hop. I listen to a lot of Breeze Brewin, LP, A$AP Rock, Sean Price, Billy Woods, Jean Grae, Vince Staples, Ka, Joe Budden, Greaves, and Decisive. And that's just to name a few. What these rappers have that makes them different from mainstream acts is that they have a quirk, ability, a style, or sound that they focus on, rather than trying to do everything well. And those artists also don't have an image, at least not in a traditional sense. The image is basically purely based on the music, instead of a full-packaged artist. Also, these artists, for the most part, don't try to replicate what the majors are currently doing. Just as major acts in hip-hop seem to be losing their luster, and major labels seeming to be less and less competent about knowing what the average fan wants, so do major developers and publishers. I'm not someone who tells an artist what to make, as I definitely believe an artist's vision supersedes anything else. However, when you have to consider widespread commercial success, there are always concessions that have to be made. In the hip-hop world, it seems to be only concessions and trend chasing, without any artistic vision. While in the gaming AAA space, we seem to have developers and publishers who only want to follow their vision and never take feedback. However, outside of story and character design, I'd argue the actual game design side of things are a bit less artistic and a bit more calculative. However, even those decisions only take in the responses from focus groups rather than actual gamers. As much as it pains me to say this, since I'm not actually a fan of the game, but Fortnite does this excellently. They give their fans what they want with dream matchups and including popular culture, but at the same time they balance the game to their liking, while still looking at community feedback. Not saying it's the world's greatest game, but there's definitely a reason why the popularity remains strong, and so does its place in the mainstream culture. Where gaming does shine is in the indie space. I'm not saying we don't have great pillars in the AAA space, such as FromSoft, just like there are great mainstream rappers like Kendrick Lamar and J. Cole, but those are few and far between. The best indie games are just like many indie and underground rappers. They don't focus on trying to duplicate AAA games, but instead focus on doing a few things, or even one thing very well. That one thing doesn't mean the hook will always bring in millions of players, but as an indie developer, 20,000 cells can be life-changing for many, especially on a $15 game made with only 1 or 2 people. So what games do this well? Well, my personal favorites are Downwell, Hotline Miami, Needhog, Divekick, Overcooked, and Arcane. Some of these games have been talked about to death online, but there's a great reason why. Downwell's simplicity in falling, bouncing on enemies' heads, and gun boots is satisfying. Hotline Miami is frantic, fast-paced, and punchy. Needhog is twitchy and fun, and it's always funny to see your player get eaten when they win. Divekick literally takes one type of an attack from a fighting game and makes it into a fun party game. Overcooked breaks up friendships and relationships, as it gets you to yell at each other for getting in each other's way, and go full Gordon Ramsay. And then Arcane. It's fast, twitchy, and addictive, intense, and visually satisfying, with only one level. Compared to AAA games that try to do everything, all of these games are rather one note, but they're playing the crap out of that singular note, and it never goes flat. Game development, just like hip-hop, had much more humble roots than what the current industry provides. I think getting in touch with those roots, limiting the scope in your work, and focusing on true artistic vision is key. As much as I love large commercial affairs, I think hip-hop and gaming both shine a lot more when they're closer to their roots, going back to the basement with a handful of people, and executing a vision. I definitely feel like there's space for major heavy hitters as well, but every now and then those teams and artists need to scale back a bit and go back to where they started, and revisit the things that made them fall in love with their craft. Thank you very much, and thank you for your time.